Chapter 35-70. Feng-jiu lay in his arms and fell asleep in a daze. Xianyuanmos looked at her in his arms and his eyes flashed. With her alcohol tolerance, she wouldn't get drunk easily. However, after seeing the little spirit monkey being swallowed alive, she probably got drunk because she was upset. Song Yiping wanted to ask more, but when he saw Master Ling covering up Madam Ling, he opened his mouth but didn't say anything in the end. However, he secretly made a decision in his heart. Since there was a chance to turn all Ling's white hair back into black hair, he must find all the spiritual herbs. Feng-jiu slept very soundly because of the alcohol and only woke up in the afternoon the next day. When she woke up and found herself in Xianyuanmos' arms, she was startled and asked, "You didn't move for the whole night?" Xianyuanmos replied, "I also took a nap." His hands didn't move because they were numb from being stiff for the whole night. Feng-jiu saw him like this, so she retreated and put his arm on her leg. She said, "You must have had a bad blood circulation after staying up all night. Let me give you a massage." As she spoke, her fingers were already massaging his arm and gently massaging it. She felt that the muscles on his arms were a little stiff, but as she massaged them, they gradually softened. "Do you feel better?" she asked. Xianyuanmos' heart was as sweet as honey. His bearded face didn't reveal a smile, but there was a smile and gentleness in his eyes. "Emichim, I'm much better. You can't do this next time." She reminded him and said, "If you don't move for a long time, your blood won't flow well. It's not good for your arms." "Yes," he replied simply as his deep black eyes landed on her body. The gentleness in his eyes was enough to drown a person. Song Yiping and Yiling, who had already woken up, looked at them. Even though they were just spectators, they could still feel the deep affection between Master Ling and Madam Ling. There were no sweet nothings between them. Instead, it was more simple and ordinary. It was as if they were a married couple who had been together for a long time. They could tell what the other party was thinking with just a glance or an action. The two of them were so powerful, yet they valued relationships so much. It had to be said that the two of them really made them curious. Xianyuanmos retrieved some water from his space and washed up. He then stood at the entrance of the cave and looked out while Feng-jiu turned to Song Yiping and Yiling. "We're about to leave. Do you need us to send you off?" Song Yiping helped Yiling up and used his cloak to cover her from head to toe. He then said, "Then I'll have to trouble Master Ling and Madam Ling. I want to take Ling away from here and find a place to nurse her body back to health." "That's easy." Feng-jiu smiled and led them to the top of the mountain. Yiling, who was lying on Song Yiping's back, looked at the top of the mountain and felt that it was inconceivable. She had almost been burned to death here, but now, she had reappeared here. If the people in her clan knew about this, they would definitely feel that it was inconceivable. "I'll send you to the Yu family. You know family head Yu, so you can take Yiling to his place to nurse her body back to health. It'll be more convenient for you to get medicine and other things," Feng-jiu said. Just as he was about to use the teleportation formation to send them away, he faintly heard a sound coming from the mountain. She looked toward the mountain and also released her divine sense. Her eyes couldn't help but tremble slightly. Chapter 35-71. Song Yiping also looked down the mountain. However, with their strength, their divine senses couldn't reach that far. "There's a battle in the mountain," Feng-jiu said. She smelled the faint smell of blood in the air and said, "There's blood." Hearing this, Song Yiping and Yiling were stunned. There were only 8 reclusive families in Qianling Mountain. There were no outsiders, and they had never seen blood. "How could do you want to go and take a look?" Feng-jiu looked at the two of them and asked. Song Yiping was a little hesitant. They were already planning to leave this place. If they went to take a look and were discovered, wouldn't that be "Let's go and take a look"? The people from the 8 families usually don't use their weapons. Now that there's blood, things must be complicated. It's better to go and take a look, Yiling said softly. Seeing this, Fengjiu nodded, then let's go. She looked at Xianyuanmose. Xianyuanmose held her hand and walked down the mountain with her. Song Yiping carried Yiling on his back and followed behind the two of them. In the forest in the mountain, the lush branches blocked the light, causing the forest to be filled with a cold aura. At this moment, the people from the 8 families were fighting in a chaotic battle. They were originally ordered to patrol the forest, but they suddenly started fighting here. The blades in their hands were incomparably sharp and could take people's lives. The clanging of blades and swords collided. The aura of the surging aura spread out, becoming oppressive and cold. The smell of blood and the low roars of the people spread in the forest. Ah! Clang! With a blood-curdling scream, a stream of blood splashed out. One person fell. Immediately after, the blade slashed down fiercely. However, it was blocked by the sharp blade in another person's hand. The blade and sword collided, creating a clanging sound and sparks flying out. Get up! Release the signal! A man covered in blood roared. He protected the man who had been slashed and ordered him to quickly release the signal to the sky. If Fengjiu and Song Yiping were here, they would recognize that this man covered in blood was Yiling's brother. However, the moment he shouted, a knife slashed at his arm that was holding the knife. Hiss! He suddenly sucked in a breath of air and cried out in pain. The hand holding the sword also fell to the ground due to the sudden pain. Blood gushed out from the wound on his arm. 2 sharp swords and blades were stabbing towards him. Swish! The sharp sword chi and the sharp saber chi came at him. The cold murderous aura came through the tip of the sword chi and slashed his face before the sharp sword chi did, leaving a trail of blood. Be careful! One of the older men pounced on him and pushed him to the ground. He quickly rolled on the ground to avoid the deadly sharp blades. They only heard the sound of air flowing past them, and a cold killing intent engulfed their bodies. Let's go! The older man pushed him away and jumped up to block the people who were surrounding him. However, because he was able to fight against so many people, he was either slashed in the shoulder or stabbed in the waist, and he staggered. Uncle! Seeing that his loved one was slashed and his life was hanging by a thread, he couldn't care less about running back. He grabbed the knife on the ground and blocked the sharp blades that were slashing at him. Clang! Chapter 3572. The aura of death enveloped them at this moment. Their bodies stiffened. It was too late for them to dodge. However, at this moment, a powerful airflow came from the other side. It passed by the two of them and sent all the people besieging them flying. Shio! Bang! Ah! A chaotic sound was heard. The 4 or 5 people were sent flying a few meters away. They spat out a mouthful of blood. The 2 people who were rescued on the ground widened their eyes in shock as they looked at the people who were sent flying. They suddenly turned around and saw a woman in green retracting her hand. The aura surging in her hand also dissipated as she retracted her hand. Behind her, Song Yiping was carrying a person covered in a black cloak. It was impossible to tell whether the person was a man or a woman because the person's body and face were not exposed. Beside the green-clothed woman was the bearded man in black clothes. When they saw these familiar faces, they were unable to recover from their shock. Why are you here? Feng Jiu lazily glanced at the two of them and said, if we didn't happen to be here, you would be dead by now. Ah! After those people got up, they rushed at them with swords. They did not take the injuries on their bodies seriously. Instead, they seemed to have lost their minds. At this time, the man who was pushed away suddenly came back to his senses. He quickly took out a signal from the space. Shio! A loud sound was heard in the sky. At the same time, a signal pattern was formed. When the signal sounded in the sky, the people of the Yi family could not help but be shocked. They immediately said, "Quick! Something happened. Follow me." A group of people quickly went out. They followed the signal and quickly rushed to the place where the signal came from. After the other families heard the signal from the Yi family, they were surprised. They paused for a moment and said, "Could it be that the person with the divine beast appeared?" Thinking of this, the family heads quickly led people to the place where the signal smoke was. In the forest, Song Yiping saw that there were people from the Song family among those people. He immediately shouted, "Stop! Everyone stop! What are you doing? Stop! There's no need to shout. Can't you see that they've lost their minds and are in a killing frenzy?" Fengjiu said leisurely. He didn't even glance at those people. He ignored the people who rushed up and glanced at the corpses on the ground. He looked at the remaining 3 members of the Yi clan and asked, "How did you guys stay awake? They've all lost their minds. Let's stop them first." The 2 people on the ground supported each other and stood up. When they saw those people holding swords and sabers coming at them, they couldn't help but take a step back. "Killed." Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at Song Yiping. Song Yiping's face turned serious. "Madam Ling, can you knock them out? These people are the elites of several clans. If we kill them, I'm afraid these clans won't let the matter rest." "That's easy, but it seems like they can't control their own bodies. Even if they faint, they probably can't stop them." As Fengjiu spoke, he glanced at the people who had rushed forward. With a flick of his sleeve, another wave of energy shot out and flipped them over. Bang bang. Chapter 3573. The 3 men from the Yi family could not help but feel a chill run down their spines when they saw the 20 to 30 people walking towards them like zombies. Their eyes narrowed as they looked at the group of people who had obviously slowed down due to their injuries. Their bodies were covered in blood as they walked towards them with heavy footsteps. The swords and sabers on the ground were dragged along the ground, and their eyes were not clear at all. They were too terrifying. They looked as if their bodies had been taken over by something. They couldn't sense any injuries on their bodies, nor could they feel any pain. Furthermore, the chilling aura that permeated their bodies was so obvious that they couldn't help but shiver. Fengjiu was about to make a move when Xianyuanmo stopped her. "No need, someone is coming." Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced in the direction of the movement. She then turned around and grabbed Xianyuanmo's hand to leave. Song Yiping glanced at them on the ground and moved his mouth. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not say anything and turned around to leave. However, at this moment, an angry voice was heard. "Yiping! Stop right there." Patriarch Song rushed over and saw the figure that was turning around. He recognized his son at a glance. Seeing that he was about to leave, he immediately shouted, "You're back, why don't you go home? You actually want to leave when you see me?" Song Yiping froze and stopped in his tracks. When the people who rushed over saw the corpses on the ground and the injured people, they could not help but gasp. Hiss! What the hell is going on? Stop them! Don't let them go! Someone shouted. As soon as the voice fell, 2 groups of people quickly stepped forward to stop Fengjiu and the others. Clang! Ah! What are you doing? Stop! Some people stepped forward, but those people fiercely pointed their swords at them. They instinctively blocked them and looked at those injured people in shock and astonishment. They have lost their minds. Tie them up first. The members of the Yi clan were helped to the side by their clansmen, while treating the wounds on their bodies. Lost their minds. How could this be? When the other clans heard this, they couldn't help but widen their eyes. When they saw their clansmen covered in blood and wounds of various sizes, they couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Oh my God! They were all injured so badly. Not only are there external injuries, internal injuries are also. Ignoring the exclamations behind him, Fengjiu held Xianyuanmo's hand and glanced at the people blocking their way. He said lazily, "Are you sure you want to stop us?" Those people looked at each other and said, "You can't leave until the matter is clear." She. Fengjiu sneered, "It wasn't us who hurt them like this. Why can't we leave?" Her voice was cold. As soon as she finished speaking, a wave of pressure also attacked, directly shaking the people in front of her away. Ah! Those people were fiercely shaken by the pressure and fell to the ground, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. They looked at the beautiful woman in green in shock. For a moment, they were so shocked that they couldn't speak. "If you want to block my way, let's see if you have the ability to do so," Fengjiu said slowly, holding Xianyuanmo's hand and walking forward step by step. Chapter 3574. It was this madam who saved us. Don't do anything to them, the people from the Yi family said, stopping both sides. They were supported by the people from the Yi family to Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo's and bowed to them. "Thank you for saving us." Fengjiu glanced at them and said, "Instead of saying thanks, I think it's better to take action." Hearing this, the people were stunned and couldn't help but look at each other. After thinking for a bit, the older one asked, "May I know what the madam wants us to do?" "There's no need to do anything, but each of you can take out some gold coins or crystal stones as thanks for saving your lives," Fengjiu said with a smile and looked at them. Hearing this, they secretly let out a sigh of relief and immediately said, "Yes, that's for sure." Saying this, they took out the gold coins and crystal stones from their spaces and put them into a universe bag. They said, "Madam, this is all we have. Please don't mind. If the two of you can come back to the Yi family with us, our family will definitely take out a generous gift to thank you." "No need, this is all," Fengjiu said and took it. After those people were tied up, they were still struggling. Their blood-red eyes and the emptiness in their eyes caused the crowd's hearts to tremble. "Isn't this the same as before? Yiling was already burned to death, how could?" The person who spoke stopped mid-sentence. "That's right, Yiling was already burned to death. Now that this happened, didn't it mean that they burned the wrong person?" Some people looked at Song Yiping after that person said this, thinking that he would lose his mind after hearing this news. They didn't expect to see his calm face. Everyone was surprised. What's wrong with him? Why is he so calm after hearing about Yiling? "Yiping, are you all right?" Father Song asked and looked at him with worry. He sighed helplessly in his heart. Song Yiping looked at him and asked, "Father, why are you asking this? Did something happen? Why are you asking this?" Seeing his son's sharp gaze, Father Song couldn't say a word. Should he tell him that the woman he loved was already burned to death? That his engagement with Yiling was also cancelled? After a moment of silence, Father Song sighed, "You haven't been home for a long time. You should stay a few more days." "No, I'm about to leave with Master Ling and Madam Ling," Song Yiping said and didn't look at him. "Wait." A family head walked over. He looked at Song Yiping and looked at the person he was carrying, but he couldn't see her because she was covered by a black cloak. So he could only give up. He turned to look at Xianyuanmo's and Fengjiu, then cupped his hands and bowed to them. "Gentlemen, I wonder if you could dispel our confusion. Why are our people like this?" Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. "Why should we answer your questions? And, as long as the two of you can explain to us, our 8 families are willing to reward you handsomely after we solve this problem," the family head said. He saw that she had asked the Yi family members for gold coins and crystal stones, so he thought that they would agree. Who would have thought? Chapter 3575. Xianyuanmo's glanced at those people and said to Fengjiu, can they be like you and eat level 7 pills like candy? Hearing those words, those people couldn't help but be startled. Then, they opened their eyes wide with astonishment and disbelief. What did they just hear? Eating 7th-tier medicinal pills as if they were candy. How was that possible? Level 7 pills were priceless. Even if someone was willing to pay a high price, they wouldn't be able to buy a level 7 pill. That bearded man actually said that his wife ate level 7 pills like candy. Was this a lie? Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled. That's true. She held his hand and said, let's go. None of these people are pleasing to the eye. Emichim, Xianyuanmo's replied. He didn't even glance at those people and led her forward. Song Yiping looked at his father and said, take care. With that, he quickly followed them with Yiling. Yiping, wait. Father Song reached out to pull him back. Just as he was about to pull the cloak away, a hidden force struck his outstretched hand. Hiss. He gasped and instinctively withdrew his hand. He stared in shock at the green-clothed woman who had stopped and was looking at him. Strangely, when he met the green-clothed woman's cold gaze, he felt his heart tremble with fear. Song Yiping also quickly dodged after coming to his senses and didn't let him catch him. At that moment, he even thought that if the cloak was pulled away, Yiling wouldn't be able to leave. Father Song rubbed his sore hand and glanced at the woman in green. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then, he said to Song Yiping, you've been out for a long time. Go home. Song Yiping paused for a moment as if he was hesitating. He looked at the corpses on the ground and walked to the two people's side. He said to Xianyuanmo's and Fengjiu, Master Ling, Madam Ling, can you please tell me why they lost their minds? After all, his family was also here. If he knew that something had happened to his family but ignored it, he would feel uneasy. If the two of them knew about it, they could remind him and perhaps help his family. Hearing this, Xianyuanmo's and Fengjiu exchanged glances. After some thought, Fengjiu's indifferent voice rang out, the yin qi below Mount Qianling is too heavy. Over the years, the yin spirits have become more ferocious. Moreover, there are several yin gathering formations in Mount Qianling. There should be some evil person using the yin spirits as puppets and sucking the vitality of cultivators. Hearing this, the people from the other clans couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. They looked at each other, then stepped forward and cupped their hands. Madam, please give us some pointers. How can we neutralize it? Fengjiu curled his lips and said, if this matter isn't dealt with properly, it won't be long before all of your clans wither away. Her voice paused. Looking at their anxious expressions, she continued, however, as I said before, why should I help you? Seeing that she wasn't willing to help, the family heads couldn't help but feel anxious, but there was nothing they could do. The person before them was clearly stronger than them. If they used force, they were afraid that they would be the ones to suffer in the end. However, she wasn't willing to help them. What could they do? Chapter 3576. Fengjiu originally didn't intend to help, but when she saw Song Yiping looking at her pleadingly, she sighed in her heart and said, for Song Yiping's sake, can your family take out 3,000-year-old medicinal herbs? Hearing this, the family heads looked at each other in surprise. 3,000-year-old herbs weren't difficult for them, but 1,000-year-old herbs were extremely precious. They hesitated for a moment before one of them asked, can it be less? Before he could finish, Fengjiu interrupted, 4. Hearing this, the patriarch's eyes widened. Why are there 4 more? You said 3 just now. Fengjiu sneered, you also said it just now. Weren't you hesitating? If you don't want to, then forget it. I don't lack 1,000-year-old herbs. Worried that they would add more if they hesitated, they gritted their teeth and said, fine. For it is, but you have to help us deal with this. Let me take a look first. Fengjiu said and signaled for Song Yiping to bring Yiling to the side to rest. Song Yiping took a glance at them before leading Yiling toward a large tree. He placed Yiling down under the cover of the large tree before putting a hood over her head. Her entire body was still wrapped in the black cloak, so her face was completely concealed. The family heads discussed for a moment and each of them sent an elder to retrieve the 1,000-year-old herbs. At this moment, seeing that their family members were still struggling, one of the family heads walked up and asked, "Madam Ling, is there a way to help them recover first?" They were the masters of their respective clans, yet they were actually helpless against these matters. They were truly ashamed. Fengjiu glanced at them and walked up. She condensed spirit energy on her finger and pointed at their foreheads. In the next moment, smoke rose from their heads. Those people trembled and came back to their senses. "See? Why am I covered in injuries? It hurts. Who injured me like this? Who tied us up here? Family head. Patriarch, why are you here?" Those who gradually recovered felt the pain from the wounds on their bodies. They couldn't help but scream and gasp for breath. Then, they saw that their own family's patriarch was actually here. Seeing that they were tied up and didn't untie them, and seeing that there were some corpses on the ground, they were instantly stunned. What's going on? What the hell happened? Who killed these people? The people from the various clans didn't say anything. The corpses on the ground belonged to all the clans, and the ones who did it were their people. What else could they say? She couldn't say anything. Fengjiu glanced at them and said casually, "You guys killed them." "Nonsense. How could we attack our own people?" Their faces turned pale in an instant. Even though they tried their best to deny it, they knew that it was true when they saw the expressions of their family heads and the other clans. They were the ones who did it. How could this be? How could this be? Someone murmured. Seeing that a family member who was on good terms with them had died just like that, and it was possible that they were the ones who killed him, they couldn't accept it. One of the family heads sighed. "You were possessed by evil and lost your minds, so..." Chapter 3577. Hearing this, those people were startled. They thought for a moment and one of them said, "I remember that we went over there and for some reason, we felt that the yin energy there was very heavy. We wanted to go check it out, but we only felt a chill from the bottom of our feet to the bottom of our hearts. In the end, we didn't know what was going on. It's the same for me. We're all the same." Hearing this, the family heads fell into deep thought. They wanted to go check it out, but they were worried that something might happen. Seeing that Madame Ling was standing to the side and didn't seem to want to go over, they could only wait. At this moment, Fengjiu came to Song Yiping's side and said to the two of them, "I'll send you off first." As she spoke, she handed the Qianquan pouches containing gold coins to Song Yiping and said, "Take them." This. Song Yiping was startled. He didn't expect her to give these things to him. Fengjiu didn't give him time to speak. She stretched out her hand and a powerful force surged in the air. In the next moment, a vortex appeared beside the tree. "Go in." Fengjiu glanced at the two of them. Song Yiping immediately helped Yiling up from the ground and said to Xianyuanmos and Fengjiu, "Thank you, Master Ling, Madam Ling." With that said, he didn't give his father any time to stop him and immediately jumped into the vortex with Yiling. As the vortex disappeared, the two of them also disappeared before everyone's eyes. The moment the two of them disappeared, Yiling's brother couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock. At that moment, he seemed to have seen a corner of the cloak being lifted by the vortex. Hidden under the cloak was actually a wisp of silver-white hair. He stood there in a daze, unable to believe his eyes. The person Song Yiping was carrying was his sister Yiling. How was this possible? Wasn't she burned to death? However, for an instant, he recalled the scene when he saw Song Yiping and Yiling that day. This time, Song Yiping didn't react at all when he heard that his sister had been burned to death. So, the person wrapped in the cloak was a woman, and a woman with silver white hair. Other than his younger sister, Yiling, he believed that no one else could make Yiling do this. Thinking about this, his heart trembled. He was very curious, but he didn't know how to solve it. However, at this moment, he was certain that his sister was alive. And she was with Song Yiping. The spiritual herbs are here, the spiritual herbs are here. A clan elder brought a few guards with him. One of the guards shouted as he walked. The person who arrived first handed over the elixirs to the clan head, and the clan head then gave the 1,000-year-old elixirs to Fengjiu. Madam Ling, please take a look. Fengjiu glanced at the boxes. The patriarch in front of him opened one of the boxes. Inside it was a stalk of 1,000-year bamboo heart grass. It could be considered a pretty good spirit herb. She then looked at the other open boxes. They were all okay, so she nodded. With a flick of her sleeve, she put away the boxes that contained the 1,000-year-old spirit herbs. Ours is here. The other clans also came forward with their 1,000-year-old elixirs. Looking at the elixirs in their hands, their hearts couldn't help but ache. Chapter 3578. Seeing his son being sent away in front of him, the head of the Song family was still in a daze. He did not know when he would return after leaving this time. Head of the Song family, we've brought ours too. The people of the Song family also brought out 4 stalks of spiritual herbs. Although these families were reclusive families, they still had a good foundation. Naturally, they could take out a few stalks of 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs. However, they were precious items after all, so they were reluctant to part with them. However, they also knew that compared to being haunted by evil spirits, if they could use these spiritual herbs to exchange for peace, it was worth it. After Fengjiu looked at the spiritual herbs, he looked at the crowd and said, "The rest of you can either go back first or wait here. You can't follow. As for the heads of the Song family, you can come with us. Each of you can bring 2 elders." Hearing this, the heads of the Song family looked at each other and each picked 2 elders to follow by their side. The others let them wait here. As for the Yi family, because the head of the Yi family did not come, only the elders came. Therefore, the elders came on behalf of the Yi family. At this time, Xianyuan Mo said to Fengjiu, "Bring them to break the Yin gathering array. Leave the rest to me." He looked at the sky and said, "After 2 hours, just wait here for me." Fengjiu originally wanted to go with him, but thinking that he was stronger than her, she said, "All right. Be careful. I'll bring them to break the Yin gathering array in the forest, then I'll come back here to wait for you." Moving separately like this, it would be faster to deal with it. They would probably be able to leave this place before sunset. Xianyuan Mose nodded and turned to walk into the forest. After seeing him leave, Fengjiu said to the heads of the Song family, "Follow me." Fengjiu released her divine sense and could naturally sense that something was wrong in the forest. She looked at the sun above her head. It was almost noon. Between the leaves, there was a faint ray of sunlight in the forest, dispelling some of the yin qi. After walking for a while, the people walking beside her could clearly feel a wave of yin qi enveloping them. Even if they were protected by strong spiritual energy, they could still feel the yin qi. No wonder they couldn't stand it and lost their minds. The yin qi here is so strong that even the noon sun can't suppress it. One of the heads of the Song family said with a serious expression. After looking around, his gaze fell on the girl in green. They did not find any yin gathering array in this area, but there was a wave of yin qi. What was the reason? Fengjiu walked forward for about 50 meters before stopping. Wherever she walked, the yin qi would automatically disperse, not daring to come closer. This scene shocked the people behind her. Originally, the yin qi that filled the air was like a transparent wind. It was impossible to grasp or see where it existed. However, after she walked past, the surrounding yin qi swirled in the air and scattered to the side. Just who was she? How could she do this? Fengjiu looked around. In the next moment, she raised her hand and a cluster of flames flew out from her palm. The flames split into 3, 3 into 6, 6 into 9, and finally landed in 9 different directions. Bang! Bang bang bang! Chapter 3579. Seeing this scene, the patriarchs and elders couldn't help but be startled. He broke a yin gathering array so quickly. They couldn't even see where the yin gathering array was located. Although they were shocked, they felt relieved. It seemed that this Madame Ling was indeed capable. However, at this moment, one of the elders suddenly trembled. Immediately after, he approached a family leader and grabbed his shoulder with one hand, absorbing his essence with the palm of his hand. Ah! The patriarch cried out in alarm. He was unable to move at that moment, and his face turned pale. He wanted to struggle, but there was nothing he could do. Seeing this, the other patriarch was shocked. He quickly waved his palm at the patriarch. Let go of the family head. The wind from the palm struck down fiercely, and it was unstoppable. That family head who was absorbing the essence didn't seem to see it. He didn't even try to avoid it. He just absorbed the essence crazily. No one saw that after the essence entered that family head's body, it silently flowed into an ancient jade pendant he wore. The other patriarchs and elders also regained their senses. They tried to stop it, but for some reason, in the next moment, their bodies seemed to be frozen by a gust of cold qi. They all stood there stiffly, unable to move. Fengjiu frowned and glanced at them. Spiritual energy surged from his palm, and he slammed it towards that family head. At the same time, he shouted, "How dare you!" He actually dared to attack people in front of her. This yin spirit was really audacious. Who? Bang! That family head was shaken off and fell to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The ancient jade pendant hidden in the front of the family head's clothes floated up by itself. He tried to pull it out, but because the rope tied to the ancient jade was tied with an ancient knot, it couldn't be pulled apart. Instead, it strangled the family head half to death. Hurry up and kill me. That family head's body was cold. His body trembled, and his hair stood on end. He asked Fengjiu for help with a trembling voice. Seeing that none of them could move, a ray of light shot out from her finger. With a whoosh, the rope tied to the jade pendant was cut. In the next moment, the jade pendant was quickly swept away by a gust of yin qi. Trying to escape. You can't escape. Fengjiu didn't pay attention to those who couldn't move. Instead, she chased after the yin spirit. It wasn't until she was far away that those who were shocked by the yin qi breathed a sigh of relief and recovered. Let's go and take a look. After they recovered from the shock, they quickly caught up with him. In fact, they knew that Madame Ling had asked them to come because she knew that they didn't believe her, so she wanted them to see with their own eyes the scene of her helping them get rid of the evil spirit. However, they didn't expect that they would all fall at the first yin gathering array. At this moment, they couldn't help but rejoice. Fortunately, they asked Madame Ling for help. Otherwise, it wouldn't be long before their families would be destroyed here. In front, Fengjiu chased after it and attacked with a stream of air, but the ancient jade dodged it. The ancient jade seemed to have a mind of its own as it frantically fled into the depths of the forest. With a fierce dash, it arrived at a place where yin gathered. Chapter 3580. Where do you think you're going? Fengjiu shouted coldly. With a flip of her palm, a flame shot out and enveloped the evil spirit that was attached to the ancient jade. The flame burned fiercely, and a shrill and sharp voice sounded at this time. Ah! The voice went from high to low until it finally disappeared, and the ancient jade fell to the ground. When the family heads and elders saw this scene, their hearts couldn't help but jump. It was just a flame, but it burned the evil spirit that was so dense with yin energy. Fengjiu looked around, then looked at the family heads and elders. I'll leave this place to you guys. The array core is here, I'll take care of the front. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward. At this place, there seemed to be a gloomy and fierce voice coming from the depths of the forest. The voice contained a powerful yin energy that spread through the forest, echoing between the trees. Fengjiu paused and looked in the direction of the voice. Mo should have found that thing. As long as the main source was destroyed, the remaining yin spirits were no longer a threat to the hidden families, no matter how dense their yin energy was. She looked back at the people behind her and said, "One person is enough. The rest of you, follow me." With that, she led them forward. Perhaps because the person hidden in the depths of the forest had been found by Xianyuan Mose, the hidden arrays in the forest lost their powerful yin energy and gradually appeared in the forest. This time, Fengjiu didn't need to say anything, the people behind her also saw it. "You guys can take care of these on your own. The rest are also in this area, you guys can take care of them yourselves." She glanced at them, and with a push of her foot, she rushed in the direction of Xianyuan Mose. In a place deeper in the forest where the yin energy had formed a whirlpool, the yin energy could be seen with the naked eye rolling wildly. A cold wind blew, blowing leaves off a tree. In the center of the whirlpool formed by the yin energy, Xianyuan Mo stood there, his entire body surging with spiritual energy. The powerful pressure and airflow formed a kind of invisible shock, and the surrounding yin energy didn't dare to approach. Looking carefully, one could see that in the center of the whirlpool, where the yin energy was wrapped, there was a corpse lying there. The corpse was wrapped in a large black robe, and it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman. The surrounding yin energy was emitted from the corpse, and as the yin energy dissipated, the corpse gradually withered. A pool of blood seeped out from under the black robe, making a sizzling sound. As he watched the pool of blood seep out, Xianyuan Mo's foot, which was originally on the ground, also left the ground. With a wave of his sleeve, the domineering aura of a king instantly filled the forest, and a powerful force covered the sinister aura in the forest until it disappeared without a trace. When Fengjiu arrived, he had already destroyed the yin energy and there was only a pool of blood on the ground. Seeing this, she stopped and said, "Let's go." Now that the matter here was settled, they could leave. It was also time to investigate the background of Sovereign Tongtian and Sovereign Black Lotus. Xianyuan Mose wiped off the faint smell of blood on his body, then walked towards Fengjiu. In the next moment, a whirlpool transmission array appeared, and the two disappeared into the air. Chapter 3581. Sovereign Tongtian's palace in this world was located on an island in the sky. The island floated in the sky due to his powerful spiritual energy, and it was heavily guarded. Formations and boundaries combined to form a powerful protection. In the mountain range below the floating island, Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu stood on top of a peak facing the wind. They looked towards the sky and released their divine sense to observe the island behind the clouds. "I thought his palace was underground, but I didn't expect it to be above. It'll be a bit troublesome to sneak in," Fengjiu said softly as she looked at the clouds in the sky. If it was below, it would be easy for them to sneak in with their cultivation. But above, it was heavily guarded and there was nothing to hide. As long as they went up, they would be discovered. Xianyuan Mose looked up and said, "It should be easier to move at night. Let's wait until nightfall." "All right," Fengjiu responded. Looking at the scenery ahead, she said, "Then let's find a place to rest." After coming out of Qianling Mountain, they directly went to the mountain range without even entering the city. Now that it was still early, they could find a place to rest. "Let's go over there. There's a waterfall over there." Xianyuan Mose's gaze fell on the waterfall in front of them. Fengjiu held his hand, and the two of them leaped into the air, heading towards that place. At the waterfall, a white figure was sitting cross-legged on a stone beside the waterfall. His body was filled with a faint light, and his aura was so faint that it seemed to have fused with the earth. The sound of the waterfall hitting the stone, the wind blowing, the rustling of the leaves, the sound of nature, and the aura of nature, made people's body and mind unconsciously relax. "What do you want to eat? Game or something else?" Xianyuan Mose led her to the waterfall and asked. "There's still food in the space. There's no need to trouble yourself. We can just eat something," Fengjiu said. When the two came to the edge of the waterfall, she casually broke off a branch and played with it in her hand. However, after walking for a while, when they came to the waterfall, she felt the person beside her stop. She couldn't help but look at him. Seeing that he was looking ahead, she followed his gaze. She couldn't help but be stunned. Mo Chin. Who else could it be but Mo Chin? That white-clothed person sitting cross-legged on the ground was none other than her. A tree happened to block her line of sight. If she hadn't followed Xianyuan Mose's line of sight, she really wouldn't have noticed him. After all, he didn't emit any aura at all, so they couldn't sense that there was someone here. Xianyuan Mose's deep black eyes landed on the figure in white. His eyes flashed, and he spoke in a deep voice, "I never thought that I would see you here. Are you here for the sovereign of Tongtian? Or were you waiting for us here?" Mo Chen, who had been meditating with his eyes closed, slowly opened his eyes when he heard their voices. His clear and gentle gaze swept past Xianyuan Mose and landed on Fengjiu, who was dressed in red. His eyes softened, and a smile bloomed on his face. Chapter 3582. Xianyuan Mose smiled and said, "You know our whereabouts very well. I only know what you want to do." As Mo Chen spoke, he stood up and brushed his robes. He looked at the two of them calmly and said, "Sovereign Tongtian's strength may be similar to yours, but he has been a sovereign for many years. Even if you want to deal with him, it will not be easy." His voice paused, and he slowly walked towards them with one hand behind his back. "Moreover, the most troublesome one isn't the sovereign of Skirich, but the Black Lotus Master. His Black Lotus has the power to destroy the world. Have you all forgotten that the Black Lotus aura in your body couldn't withstand it? Coming here so abruptly, I feel that you are really too reckless." He shook his head and sighed softly. Fengjiu chuckled and said, "Mo Chen, you worry too much. Actually, we did not plan to do anything. We just wanted to test his strength. We know what you said. Even if we really wanted to do something, we would not do it so rashly." She pulled Xianyuan Mose to sit on a large rock and took out a few spiritual fruits from her space. She passed 2 to Xianyuan Mose and 2 to Mo Chin. "Try this spiritual fruit. I just got it." The bright red fruit contrasted beautifully with the fair and slender hand. His gaze couldn't help but flicker slightly. He closed his eyes and reached out to take it. "Thank you." Fengjiu took out one of the fruits and took a bite. She said, "We originally planned to check it out at night. We did not expect you to come too. Do you want to come with us?" When she spoke to this point, she sighed in her heart. This Mo Chen, she originally didn't plan to let him know that they were here. She originally wanted to remove him from this matter so that he wouldn't be implicated by them. Who knew that he would just have to follow them? It seemed that even if she wanted to stop him, she wouldn't be able to. The three of them sat by the waterfall and chatted for a while. They also discussed how to deal with Master Black Lotus and Sovereign Tongtian. Time passed quickly. When night fell, they looked at each other. In the end, Mo Chen said, "It said that they even found the Demon Master and planned to deal with you all together. However, I don't know if they managed to rope him in. Tonight, we'll go up and test their strength. Even if we really fight, try not to fight for too long. Don't worry. We know. After all, we are in their territory." It is not good for us to fight for a long time. Fengzhou nodded and looked at Xianyuanmo's beside her. Xianyuanmo's looked back at her and retracted his aura. At this moment, he looked at Imo-chin and asked, "Are you going to wear this white?" In the night, his white clothes were still very eye-catching. Was he planning to walk in ostentatiously? Hearing this, Imo-chin was slightly startled. She lowered her head to take a look and involuntarily smiled. "It's easy for me." As she spoke, she took out a black cloak from her space and tied it around her body, covering her white clothes. "This will do." He smiled warmly and looked at Fengzhou. Fengzhou nodded. "Yes." As soon as she finished speaking, Xianyuanmo's pulled her up. She was slightly surprised and turned to look at him. She saw that his face was dark and his lips were pursed. He looked unhappy. "What's wrong?" She approached him and asked in surprise. Chapter 3583. How could Fengzhou not be familiar with him? Looking at him like this, she knew that he was probably jealous of something. She smiled and held his hand without batting an eyelid, her fingers tickling his palm. The numbness in his palm made Xianyuanmo's heart skip a beat. He lowered his head to look at Fengzhou beside him and saw that her beautiful eyes were filled with tenderness. Her face was full of smiles as she looked at him. Seeing her like this, his originally tense expression relaxed. He copied her and held her hand, his fingers lightly tickling her palm. The numbness traveled from her palm to her heart, causing Fengzhou to be stunned. Her gaze moved slightly. Seeing that a certain someone was in such a good mood, she couldn't help but laugh to herself. In the darkness of the night, even Imo-chin, who was walking beside them, didn't see the small movements between the two of them. He only knew that the two of them seemed to have become very intimate in an instant. This was the tenderness and sweetness between lovers, as well as the deep love and trust between husband and wife. This was a feeling that others couldn't get close to and couldn't blend in with. Seeing the two of them like this, he was happy for her. Because he saw that she was happy, saw that she was married to love, and saw that Xianyuanmo's loved and doted on her. In the depths of his heart, there was also a trace of emptiness. This kind of lonely feeling forced him to suppress it, not letting a single trace of it leak out. The three of them took advantage of the darkness of the night to head towards the sky. They passed through the layers of the sky and quietly approached their destination. The three of them concealed their auras as if they were one with the heavens and earth. In addition, with the cover of the night, they were able to avoid the strict guards and quietly sneak in. Fengzhou gently opened a small opening in the barrier. After the three of them entered, the small opening returned to its original state. There were constant patrols in the night. With a sweep of their divine senses, they sensed that there were many people guarding this place, both in the open and in the dark. Seeing this, Xianyuanmo's looked at Imo-chin and said, "Let's split up. The three of us will be too conspicuous." Hearing this, Imo-chin nodded. "All right, I'll go over there and take a look." He pointed to the other side as he spoke. In the next moment, his figure flashed in that direction. "Let's go over there," Xianyuanmo said as he led Fengzhou to the other side. With his hand held, Fengzhou's eyes softened and his heart warmed. It seemed that as long as she was with him, he always liked to hold her hand. Even when they were outside or taking a stroll, he would hold her hand like this. The feeling of his big hand holding her small hand was really warm and very reassuring. Meanwhile, Sovereign Tongtian, who was still unaware that Xianyuanmo's and Fengzhou had already entered the palace, was still discussing matters with the Black Lotus Master. "I heard that they left not long after they got married. I think they should have returned to the upper world. However, the people we sent out to find out have not returned yet. But if we want to make a move, we can choose a time to do so in these few days." As Sovereign Tongtian spoke, he drank a cup of wine and continued, "As for the Devil Lord, he said that his injuries have not healed. It seems like he won't be making a move anytime soon. But, He thinks that I don't know what he's thinking. I know that he wants to sit back and watch the two of us fight. He wants to see if the two of us can really deal with Xianyuanmose and Fingzhou. Chapter 3584. Just as they were discussing when to attack Fingzhou and the others, they suddenly heard a commotion outside. Both of them frowned. Sovereign Tongtian glanced at the middle-aged man beside him and said, "Go and see what's going on. Why are they arguing like this?" "Yes." The middle-aged man replied, bowed, and retreated. When he came outside and saw the flames everywhere, he couldn't help but be stunned. He grabbed a guard who was rushing over to put out the fire and asked anxiously, "What's going on? Why is there a fire for no reason? What was this place? Why would anyone make such a low-level mistake like a fire? Could it be that someone had sneaked in while they were unprepared? If there was someone, who could it be? We still don't know how the fire started, but it suddenly started in several places. Everyone is already putting out the fire." The person who was held back said hurriedly, and then hurried to the place where the fire was burning. Seeing this, the middle-aged man hurriedly lifted the hem of his clothes and quickly walked back. When he entered, he anxiously reported, "Master, the outside is burning. We still don't know if it was man-made or if it was an accident caused by the people below." Hearing this, the two men who were drinking paused. They glanced at each other. Sovereign Tongtian said, "Go and investigate. The barrier is not broken. If it wasn't a mistake by the people below, then someone powerful must have entered." "Yes." The middle-aged man replied and quickly retreated. After he left, the more Sovereign Tongtian thought about it, the more uneasy he felt. This was his territory. If someone had really entered, he felt that it could only be Xianyuanmose and Fingzhou. However, if it was really them, then this won't do. I have to go out and take a look. "Sit down," Sovereign Tongtian said as he stood up. If it was really Fingzhou and the others, his place would be destroyed by them. "Do you think it's Fingzhou and the others?" "Ha! Impossible, they don't have the guts to come here," the Black Lotus Master said confidently and continued to drink. "If they really dare to come, I'll make sure they can't go back." At this moment, Emo-chan looked at them helplessly from a tree outside. "Didn't we say that we were only going to investigate? Why did you light the fire?" Fingzhou smiled. "Since we're here, we should leave some gifts for them. How could we come and leave quietly? Why aren't you leaving? What else do you want?" Emo-chan looked at the two men and asked. Xianyuanmose looked at the chaotic crowd and looked as if they were searching for something. He didn't say anything. Fengzhou played with his hair and looked ahead. "Naturally, I want to spar with them and test their strength. Speaking of which, I haven't really fought with the Black Lotus Master before. Now that I know he's here, how can I not fight? His strength is not to be underestimated." "You..." Emo-chan wanted to say something but was interrupted by Fingzhou. "So what if it's not to be underestimated? When have I, Fingzhou, ever been afraid of anyone? Why should I delay when I have to face an enemy sooner or later? Besides, I've wanted to meet him for a long time." Chapter 3585. "Weren't you wondering if it would be me? I'm right here." Her voice was cold and arrogant. It contained a powerful pressure that spread out in the night and clearly spread through the sky. It also caused the guards who were guarding this place to feel the pressure, and they all hugged their heads and cried out, "Ah! It's Fengzhou. Quickly report to the sovereign." The cries of pain were accompanied by fear. They did not expect the ghost Dr. Fingzhou to be here. For a moment, panic and fear filled their hearts, causing them to panic. The sovereign of Tongtian, who had just walked out of the palace, was shocked when he heard Fingzhou's voice. His expression changed and he stopped in his tracks. "Fengzhou! She really came. Damn it, Why didn't anyone discover her? How could we let her sneak in without anyone noticing? The middle-aged man behind the sovereign of Tongtian laughed bitterly. That was the ghost Dr. Fingzhou. If she had wanted to sneak in silently, how could they have discovered her? Moreover, even the sovereign himself did not notice her. Inside the palace, the Black Lotus Lord stood up when he heard the commotion outside. He flicked his sleeves and sneered, "Fingzhou. I didn't look for you, but you came looking for me." He walked out as soon as he finished speaking. The Black Lotus Lord's voice contained a powerful aura. His words also reached the ears of Fingzhou and the others who were outside. Fingzhou smiled when she heard the Black Lotus Lord's voice. Her eyes shone brightly. Ever since she had advanced to this level, how long had it been since she had met an opponent? Moreover, this opponent was the Black Lotus Lord. She had wanted to meet him for a long time. She wanted to see who would emerge victorious when they fought. They were both godly kings and both possessed the ancient green lotus and the black lotus. Xianyuan Mo stood beside Fingzhou, his black robes fluttering despite the lack of wind. He looked down and asked Fingzhou, "How confident are you in dealing with the Black Lotus Lord?" "We'll only know after we fight. We have to test his strength," said Fingzhou. He looked at the two people below and said, "Leave the Black Lotus Lord to me. I'll leave Sovereign Tongtian to you. Let's test their strength. It'll be good if we can injure them severely." As she spoke, she pursed her lips and smiled. "Don't fight for a long time, and don't linger." This battle was mainly to probe their strength. It was impossible to kill all the divine kings in a single battle, but it was not impossible to severely injure them. Seeing how confident she was, Xianyuan Mo's lips curled slightly. All right. He would listen to her. In the next moment, the black figure took a step forward and stood in the air. He looked down at the shocked sovereign below and said, "Last time, you agreed to a battle with me, but in the end, you didn't dare to show up. Today, I'm here. Do you dare to come up here and fight me?" Sovereign Tongtian's face turned red when he was reminded of the past. He was embarrassed and angry. "Xianyuan Mo's. You've gone too far. How dare you be so arrogant in my territory? Last time, you asked Sovereign Xuanwu and the others to help you. That's why I didn't accept the challenge. Today, you're alone. How can I allow you to be so presumptuous?" Chapter 3586. When the guards below heard this, they hurriedly retreated to avoid being affected by the powerful pressure. In a battle between two god kings, if they were not afraid of death, they would only be looking for trouble. Now that they saw their sovereign rise into the air and prepare to fight Xianyuan Mo's, the crowd below shouted excitedly, "Sovereign Tongtian is invincible. Defeat Xianyuan Mo's." The cheers grew louder and louder, and the people below were in high spirits. It was as if they had seen their monarch beat Xianyuan Mo's to a pulp. Even at this moment, no one would have thought that their monarch would lose to Xianyuan Mo's. Seeing the crowd cheering, Fingzhou raised his eyebrows and chuckled, "Looks like you all have a lot of free time." With that, he waved his hand and a fireball flew out from his hand. It split into 9 parts and flew in 9 different directions, burning rapidly. "Ah! Put out the fire. It's on fire again." Seeing that the fire that had not been put out was burning again, the guards could not care less about cheering. Instead, they quickly poured water to put out the fire, trying their best to save the place where they lived. After all, this was where they lived. If it was burned, then, seeing the chaotic fire below, Sovereign Tongtian roared angrily, "Fingzhou. That's enough." His voice was so loud that it caused the air to tremble. However, just as he roared, a sharp sword energy slashed towards him. The sword energy was as powerful as the mountains and rivers. Sovereign Tongtian was so shocked that he quickly flipped in the air and dodged the attack in a sorry state. The chilling aura of the sword slashed past his ear, causing his hairs to stand on end. Abruptly turning his head, he saw Xianyuan, dressed in a black robe, holding a sharp sword with a cold glint in his hand and pointing it at him. "Well done, Xianyuan. You actually attacked me when I was unprepared." Hearing this, Xianyuan glanced at him. He turned the Xianyuan sword in his hand, and a cold light flashed across the blade. In the next moment, his figure flew out. If he wanted to make a move, did he have to inform him first? If he hadn't dodged quickly just now, he would have finished him off with a single strike. Sovereign Tong Tian did not dare to be careless when he saw this. He extended his hand, and a huge blade appeared in his hand. The two figures shot out with lightning speed as the pressure of God Kings radiated from them, enveloping the sky. Clang! Whoosh! Between the saber light and the sword shadow, the killing intent was bone-chilling and terrifying. The sword aura and saber aura in the air shot out like sparks and collided with each other. Neither side was willing to give way to the other. The fatal attack made both sides not dare to be careless. At first, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched. But as time passed, the intensity of the battle increased, and Sovereign Skirich could be seen retreating step by step, somewhat flustered and panicked as he defended himself against Xianyuan's attacks. Hiss! A low gasp was heard, and the smell of blood permeated the air. The people below could not tell who was injured. They only knew that the two figures were flying up and down to attack each other. Blood dripped from the air, and the smell of blood became more and more intense. Who's injured? They're too fast, I can't see. Chapter 3587. That's right. He must have been killed by our sovereign. Before he could finish his sentence, one of the two figures above him retreated abruptly. He stumbled and almost lost his balance. Xianyuan waved the Xianyuan sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was pointed diagonally at the ground. His aura was piercingly cold, and there was not a single wound on his body. On the other side, the Black Lotus Lord stared at Fengzhou, who was in midair. The next moment, he opened his hands and soared into the air like an eagle. A black aura emanated from his body and enveloped him. He suddenly pounced towards Fengzhou. Before he got close, the black aura had already attacked Fengzhou. Mo Chen, who was standing on the tree, shifted his gaze from Xianyuan to Fengzhou. When he saw the Black Lotus aura emanating from the Black Lotus Lord, he could not help but feel worried. After all, Fengzhou had never fought with him before and did not know how strong he was. Now that they had suddenly started fighting, who would be stronger? Looking at the black aura, even though it was not close, she could feel the destructive aura. She recalled the feeling when the Black Lotus aura had invaded her body. She narrowed her eyes and raised her hand. Her natal flame surged from her body. The black aura and the flame collided at that moment. The collision of the two forces produced a loud bang. The two figures were both repelled by the powerful airflow. Pfft! The Black Lotus Lord was sent flying. He felt a surge of chi and blood in his body surging up, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body swayed, and he lost his footing in midair. He took a few steps back before he could stabilize himself. Feng Jiu was also bounced back by the airflow. The powerful airflow hit her, and the chi and blood in her body surged up, but she swallowed it back down. Xianyuan's heart tightened when he saw that she was repelled. He could not care less about the sovereign of the sky-reaching sect. He immediately came to her side and supported her. "How are you?" he asked in a low voice. Looking at her pale face, he could not hide the worry in his eyes. Fengzhou shook his head and pursed his lips without saying a word. He stared at the Black Lotus Lord, who was clutching his chest and coughing while wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. Mo Chen came to Fengzhou's side and looked at her worriedly. However, he saw her move her palm and a Qingfeng sword appeared in her hand. With a flash of cold light, flames surged up with a whoosh, as if she was planning to continue the battle. Upon seeing this, the Black Lotus Lord's expression changed slightly. He stared at Fingzhou with a gloomy look in his eyes. He was extremely shocked. He did not expect Fingzhou to still be able to fight after the two powerful blasts of air collided and sent both of them flying. At this moment, there was a faint pain in his chest. That feeling made him realize that his internal organs were severely injured. If he continued to fight, his injuries would probably worsen. He had never thought that Fengzhou's strength would be so powerful. The two of them had only exchanged one move, but it had almost brought about devastating injuries. It seemed that if he wanted to attack them, he would have to think about it carefully. Xianyuan Mose reached out and pressed down on her hand that was holding the sword. He said, "Consider this a greeting gift for them. There will be plenty of time in the future. Let's go back." Chapter 3588. Seeing the three of them leave as if they were invisible, the sovereign of Tongtian clutched the wound on his arm and trembled. It was not because he was afraid, but because he was angry. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling. "Didn't you say that you had enough confidence to deal with Fengzhou and the rest? Why did you lose so miserably tonight? Look at my place, it's on fire everywhere and they left just like that. We've really lost face." The sovereign of Tongtian said angrily. He glared at the Black Lotus Master and snorted loudly. He turned around and shouted at the middle-aged man behind him, "What are you still looking at? Can't you see that my arm is injured? Hurry up and help me stop the bleeding and apply medicine." The middle-aged man was scolded for no reason, but he did not dare to show any anger. He just nodded and asked the sovereign of Tongtian to return to the palace to apply medicine and bandage his wound. The Black Lotus Master narrowed his eyes and stared in the direction Fengzhou and the rest had left. A murderous look flashed across his bloodthirsty eyes. What a good Fengzhou. The outcome of the battle was decided in just one move. She had won, but it was only a narrow victory. How could he say that she was not injured? That was impossible. Even he was injured so badly because of that one move. Even if she was not as badly injured as him, it was definitely not light. "Fengzhou, we still have a long way to go. One day, I'll settle all the old and new debts with you." The cold voice was drowned out by the sound of the surrounding fire extinguishing. The voice drifted in the air until it disappeared completely. Xianyuan Mose left with Fengzhou in his arms. When they left that place and arrived at the forest below, Fengzhou finally could not hold on any longer and a trace of blood flowed out from her wound. "Are you seriously injured?" Xianyuan Mose frowned and took out a pill from his space and gave it to her. The amount of strength the two of you used in that attack was the same as the rebound force. If you're injured to this extent, the Black Lotus Master must be seriously injured, Mo Chen said. Mo Chen looked at her pale face and said worriedly, "Sit down and rest first." Fengzhou swallowed the elixir that Xianyuan Mose passed to him. After recovering for a while, he wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth and said, "I'm fine. It's just a small injury. Although it's a small injury, it's worth it. At least I know that the strength of the Black Lotus Master is not to be underestimated. Your natal heavenly flame can match his, but if you are not careful, you will be invaded by the black aura. After all, it is not a foolproof plan. If you can mobilize the green lotus chi in your body and use it to suppress the Black Lotus power, you will be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort in battle." Mo Chen said slowly. Seeing her resting in Xianyuan Mose's arms, he stood aside quietly. Xianyuan Mose took out a glass of water and passed it to Fengzhou. "Have a sip." Fengzhou wanted to refuse, but seeing how worried he was, she smiled and took the glass of water. After taking a sip, she passed it back to him and said, "Don't worry. I said it's just a small injury. I'll recover after a night of rest. However, it's a pity that we had to give up such a good opportunity tonight. The two of them were injured to different degrees. If they had taken this opportunity to kill them, it would not have been impossible. However, it was a pity that they had to give up tonight. It would be difficult to have such an opportunity in the future. Thinking of this, she could not help but sigh softly. Chapter 3589. Is it all right for her to rest here tonight? Do we need to find another place for her to rest? Emo-chan asked, his gaze falling on Xianyuan-mo's. Xianyuan-mo's glanced at Fingzhou in his arms and said, let's rest here first. Seeing this, Emo-chan said, then I'll go and pick up some branches and come back. With that, he left to pick up some branches in the surroundings to prepare a fire. Don't worry. I'm fine. The green lotus chi in my body can repair itself. I just need to rest for a night. Fengzhou said to Xianyuan-mo's. She did not move in his arms, only found a comfortable position to close her eyes and prepare to sleep. Xianyuan-mo's took out a cloak and covered her body to block the whistling night wind. Looking at the woman nestled in his arms, he gently held her hand with one hand. Emo-chan picked up some branches and came back to light a fire beside them. The burning flames dispelled the coldness of the night, and also made the surrounding air a little warmer. He glanced at Fingzhou, who was nestled in Xianyuan-mo's arms, then looked away. His gaze fell on the fire, and he said softly, what do you plan to do next? Xianyuan-mo's lowered his head to look at Fingzhou, who was breathing calmly, and reached out to seal her sleeping acupoint. He looked at Emo-chan and saw that he was looking at him with slight surprise. He said, help me take care of her. I'll be back before dawn. Hearing this, Emo-chan frowned, you want to go back? That's right. Xianyuan-mo said in a low voice, Jio is right. It's a pity to let them go tonight. Earlier, I took her away because I didn't want her to get hurt. Now that I've brought her here, with you watching over her, I'm very relieved. He looked up at the sky and a faint light flashed in his eyes. I've already injured them tonight. It's indeed a good time to strike again. Furthermore, they definitely won't expect me to return. But if she finds out what you're doing, she'll be very worried. What's more, those two people aren't weak at all. If you go alone and something happens to you, how am I going to explain it to Fingzhou? Emo-chan disagreed. Even though he knew that what he said wasn't unreasonable, he still couldn't agree with what he was doing. Regardless of whether the matter succeeds or not, I will definitely return before daybreak. He looked at the sleeping Fingzhou in his arms and said, I won't let her worry. As he spoke, he placed a hand on the spatial bracelet on her wrist and called out in a low voice, Swallow Cloud, come out. As his spiritual energy entered the bracelet, Tun Yun, who was in the space, heard Xianyuan-mo's voice calling it out. It was slightly surprised, but it still flashed out of the space and went outside. My lord, what's wrong? Swallow Cloud, who was standing by the fire, looked at him and asked. Lie down here and let her lean against you for warmth. Xianyuan-mo glanced at Swallow Cloud and indicated for it to lie down beside Fingzhou. Swallow Cloud's mouth twitched when it heard this. It thought that something had happened. So it was called out to keep its master warm. It glanced at its master who was sleeping soundly and asked, Master, what's wrong? Even though it asked, it still obediently lay down beside her. I've sealed her sleeping acupoint. She'll wake up tomorrow. Xianyuan-mo took out a thick blanket and spread it on the ground as he spoke. He then placed Fingzhou down and had Swallow Cloud lie closer to her, using his body to protect her. Chapter 3590. Xianyuan-mo glanced at him and said calmly, There's no need to trouble you, holy son. Emo-chan shook his head and laughed. He glanced at Fingzhou, who was sleeping beside Tun Yun, and then shifted his gaze to Xianyuan-mo. Are you sure you want to go? Yes, Xianyuan-mo replied. Emo-chan sighed and said, If that's the case, then I can only tell you to be careful and do your best. You must come back safely and don't let her worry. I know, he said, then looked deeply at Fengzhou and said, I'll have to trouble you to take care of her. I will, Imo-chan replied. Even if he didn't ask, he would take good care of her. After instructing Imo-chan to take care of Fengzhou, Xianyuanmo's left under the cover of the night. He didn't want to give them a chance to catch their breaths. He had to strike now to deal them a fatal blow. After watching him leave, Imo-chan sat by the fire and looked at Fengzhou's face. Seeing her sleeping face, he reached out and pulled her cloak higher. He wondered what would happen to Xianyuanmo's after he left. At this moment, the sovereign of the sky-reaching sect and the Black Lotus Master didn't expect Xianyuanmo's to return. After all, they had seen them leave with their own eyes. Who would have thought that someone who had clearly left would return? Moreover, they were still trying to put out the fire. Even though Fengzhou and the others had left, the place was still in chaos. Especially since the sovereign of the sky-reaching sect and the Black Lotus Master were both injured, this made the people below even more anxious. In the palace, the sovereign of the sky-reaching sect's face was as black as the bottom of a pot when he saw that his wound was still bleeding after being bandaged. He waved his uninjured hand and swept the teacups on the table to the ground. He scolded angrily, useless. You can't even stop the bleeding from your wound. Get the medicine again. The middle-aged man who was waiting on the side trembled. He quickly took out some medicine and bandaged the wound. Looking at his furious master, the middle-aged man didn't even dare to breathe loudly. The middle-aged man retreated to the side and stood there with his head bowed. At this time, he heard his master's voice and looked up. What about Monarch Black Lotus? Sovereign Tong Tian asked in a dark voice. When he thought about how Fengzhou and the others had turned his place into such a mess, he could not suppress the anger in his heart. Who was the one who said that he wanted to teach Fengzhou and Xianyuanmo's a lesson? And the result? Not only was his place destroyed to such an extent, he was even injured. If news of this were to spread, how would he be able to establish himself in this world in the future? When the middle-aged man heard that the question was directed at the Black Lotus Master, he lowered his head and stepped forward. He said softly, he has returned to the courtyard. He is probably recuperating and recovering from his internal injuries. I saw him clutching his chest. He must have been severely injured. Humph. Why didn't Fengzhou just kill him? The furious sovereign of the sky-reaching sect had already forgotten that they were allies. He stood up and walked out as he asked, has the fire been put out? Not yet. The middle-aged man quickly followed behind him. Chapter 3591. Hearing his master's words, the middle-aged man did not dare to respond and just followed behind him. However, when the two of them walked outside, the sovereign of Tongtian, who was in front, suddenly felt a terrifying murderous intent coming towards him. He was shocked and instinctively pulled the middle-aged man behind him and pushed him out. Ah! Before the middle-aged man could figure out what was going on, his body was cut in half by the sword and blood splattered all over the ground. The shrill sound pierced through the night and shocked everyone to look over. Hiss! It's that Xianyuanmo's. He's back again. What they saw made the faces of the guards change drastically, especially when they saw him standing in the air with a sword in his hand. Where the sword was pointed, a corpse was split in half and fell to the ground. Their monarch also retreated in horror, his face full of disbelief. Xianyuanmo's. Didn't you leave? You actually turned back. Although he shouted, his body involuntarily retreated. Cold sweat seeped out of his forehead and his face changed. If he had not blocked the sword in time, it would have landed on his body. Even if he had the ability to block the sword, he would have been seriously injured, if not killed. How ruthless! And how fast the sword was! He wanted to kill him when he was unprepared. Perhaps because he knew how powerful he was when he fought with him earlier, he did not dare to step forward and fight with him when he saw the cold aura around him. In fact, with a thought, a voice that contained the aura of spiritual power shouted loudly. Black Lotus. Xianyuan is here again. Come out quickly. He's only one person, let's work together to kill. Before he could finish speaking, the biting cold sword light attacked again. The cold murderous intent and strong aura made him nervous. He did not have time to call for help and attacked with all his strength. Clang! The sword and the sword collided and a strong air current shot out. The sovereign of Tongtian was injured in one hand and it was difficult for him to fight with him. At this moment, the two of them leaned against each other and were only 2 steps away. Looking at Xianyuan in front of him, the sovereign of Tongtian gritted his teeth and said, Xianyuan, don't you go too far. If you hadn't made an enemy of my woman, I wouldn't have taken you seriously. Xianyuan's deep voice sounded. His deep eyes were filled with cold murderous intent as he stared at the sovereign of Tongtian. He said, I won't leave a single one of you alive if you threaten her existence. With that, the Xianyuan sword in his hand suddenly surged with sword chi. The pressure of a god king erupted, and the presence of an ancient azure dragon shot out at that moment as well, knocking the sovereign away. The moment he was knocked away, several streams of energy from his body and sword chi rapidly gathered together, forming a dragon of energy that shot towards the sovereign. Roar! The chi dragon's aura was so ferocious that it seemed like a real dragon had appeared and attacked Lord of Tongtian with lightning speed. The murderous intent was so terrifying that Lord of Tongtian's heart trembled. He gritted his teeth and immediately gathered the aura of the ancient ferocious beast in his body to meet the attack. Today, I'll fight with you to the end. Chapter 3592. Rumble. Bang! When the 2 gusts of air violently collided, Xianyuan and the sovereign of Tongtian swiftly dodged to avoid being injured by the gusts of air that shot out. However, after Xianyuan retreated, he took advantage of the rumbling sound and the gusts of air splashing to circle around to the sovereign of Tongtian's back. He raised the Xianyuan sword in his hand, and slashed down fiercely at the sovereign of Tongtian's back. Whoosh! When the sovereign of Tongtian sensed the murderous intent behind him, he quickly turned around but the sword energy was already right in front of his face. He only had enough time to avoid the fatal blow but he could not avoid the sword. Hiss! The sovereign of Tongtian screamed in agony as one of his arms was sent flying from his body. Blood splattered all over the ground as the sovereign of Tongtian fell from the sky. The guards were shocked when they saw that the sovereign of Tongtian had lost an arm. They wanted to rush forward but they could not because of the powerful divine king's coercion. They could only watch from afar and could not do anything to help. Sovereign! Master! Cries of alarm rang out, carrying traces of trembling and fear. They did not dare to imagine what would happen to them if their sovereign of Tongtian had been killed. Bang! The sovereign of Tongtian fell from above and landed heavily on the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood. As he watched Xianyuan attack him with his sword, a ray of light flashed from his body. Roar! The sovereign of Tongtian's ancient ferocious beast emerged from his space and raised its head to let out an angry roar. A murderous aura burst from its body as it charged towards Xianyuan. Its sharp fangs gleamed with a bloodthirsty light as it bit down viciously. Seeing this, Xianyuan glanced at the ancient beast. In the next moment, his pursed lips moved. Azure Dragon! Roar! A ray of azure light suddenly shot out and a dragon's roar rang out. It mixed with the ferocious beast's roar and echoed throughout the sky. The beast and dragon battled in the sky, stunning the guards who were hiding nearby. They rarely saw the sovereign of Tongtian's ferocious beast. They only knew that it was an ancient ferocious beast and was very powerful. They never thought that they would be able to see it tonight. Moreover, it was battling Xianyuan Mo's ancient azure dragon. However, the more they watched the battle between the dragon and the beast, the more they felt that their master's ancient ferocious beast was gradually losing the upper hand. What was going on? Shouldn't their master's ancient ferocious beast be more powerful? After summoning the azure dragon, Xianyuan Mo glanced at the battle between the dragon and beast and looked away. Then turned his cold gaze towards the sovereign of Tongtian, of the way, the sovereign of Tongtian's gaze. He raised his sword and pointed it at Xianyuan Mo's. Of Tongtian S's, of Tongtian's. Of Tongtian, of Tongtian's. Of Tian's of Tian of's. I'd like to see just how you, Xianyuan Mo's, are going to take my life. The sovereign of Tongtian had no fear in his heart. Only a strong desire to fight. It was a desire to fight that grew stronger with each battle. After all, he was a divine king. Even in the face of death, he would not cry and beg for mercy. His dignity as a divine king would not allow him to do such a thing. Even more so, he would not feel fear in the face of death. Chapter 3593. The two figures clashed in mid-air, and a blade of astral energy slashed down. Xianyuan Mo dodged, and the blade of astral energy landed on the ground, creating a crack. In an instant, the floating island seemed to tremble, and a faint cracking sound could be heard. Whoosh! Boom! A blade of astral energy shot out, instantly splitting a palace into two halves. The guards hiding under the eaves of the palace cried out in alarm, covering their heads and dodging in all directions. A loud rumbling sound reverberated in the night, and a palace collapsed into two halves. Dust and smoke filled the air, and rocks flew everywhere. In the blink of an eye, the magnificent palace was reduced to a pile of ruins. You broke my arm. You destroyed my palace and home. Xianyuan Mo's, today, I will not rest until you die. Sovereign Tongtian, who was holding a large blade, said fiercely. A strong fighting spirit and powerful spiritual aura converged into one. He raised his blade and slashed out with a monstrous murderous aura. It was so cold and bloodthirsty that it made people's hair stand on end. Xianyuan Mo narrowed his eyes, pursed his lips and did not say a word. However, the spiritual energy in his hand that was holding the Xianyuan sword surged. On the long sword, a frightening flow of spiritual energy formed a blade of astral energy that wrapped around the sharp sword. A black silhouette flashed through the night sky at an extremely fast speed. He leapt into the air and brandished the sword in his hand. The sword split into 3, and the sword split into 9. The 9 sword shadows emitted whistling sounds as they met the incoming attack head-on. It was also at that moment that his figure split into 2. One of them met the attack head-on, while the other flashed and appeared behind Sovereign Tongtian before anyone could react. I did not want you to live past tonight. A cold voice came from behind Sovereign Tongtian, causing him to feel a chill run down his spine. Just as he turned around, the Xianyuan sword had already pierced through his back. He could even clearly hear the sharp blade piercing his robes, penetrating his body armor, and accurately piercing his nascent soul, destroying his inner core and primordial spirit. A shrill scream resounded through the sky at that moment, and the entire sky trembled at this moment. As his inner core, primordial spirit, and nascent soul were destroyed, his spiritual aura was also frantically leaking out. His black hair, which was tied up by his spiritual aura, gradually turned white and dry, and his body rapidly shrank. He looked in disbelief at the figure in front of him that was hit by the blade and then looked down at the Xianyuan sword that pierced through his body. He opened his mouth, and blood gushed out. Behind him, Xianyuan Mo let out a muffled groan as he watched the spiritual energy in his body explode. A trace of blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. He raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, then pulled the Xianyuan sword back. With a tug of force, the sovereign of Tongtian, who had been stabbed by the Xian Yuan sword, fell from the air and fell downwards. Monarch. Looking at this scene, the people below were so shocked that they were speechless. Their faces were pale because as the spiritual energy in their monarch's bodies dissipated, the ground under their feet was cracking. The entire island was shaking as if it was going to collapse in the next moment. Chapter 3594. His gaze swept past Xianyuan Mo's and landed on the Azure Dragon. The moment Sovereign Tongtian died, his contracted beast also died without putting up a fight. The Azure Dragon that belonged to Xianyuan Mo's soared into the sky, and its roar was so loud that it hurt his ears. At first, he thought that if Xianyuan Mo's was no match for the Sovereign of Heaven reaching and escaped with serious injuries, then he wouldn't take care of the injured Sovereign of Heaven reaching. He would just take care of him and take over everything. But now, the Sovereign of Heaven reaching was the one who was no match for him. What a useless thing. What a waste of an ancient ferocious beast. Black Lotus moved his body that had recovered from his injuries, then narrowed his eyes and stared at Xianyuan Mo's. Following Sovereign Tongtian's death, the entire island that was formed by Sovereign Tongtian's spiritual energy began to collapse and fall apart. Cracking sounds could be heard in the air along with the panicked cries of those people. Seeing that it was about time, Black Lotus gathered his chi and soared into the sky, then shouted angrily. Xianyuan Mo's. You actually killed Sovereign Tongtian. Today, I will avenge Sovereign Tongtian. An angry roar that contained a powerful pressure, accompanied by grief, spread through the air. When the crowd heard it, the originally panicked crowd gradually calmed down. After calming down, what followed was monstrous anger and hatred. Avenge. Kill him and avenge Sovereign Tongtian. Sovereign Tongtian's subordinates were so angry that their eyes turned red. One by one, they soared into the sky to avoid the collapsed island. They watched as their homes cracked open and fell apart. The mountains, palaces, and trees all collapsed. Anger and hatred filled their hearts. Thick battle chi, hatred, and killing intent intertwined and formed a powerful airflow that soared into the sky. Seeing this, Black Lotus Lord was delighted. He immediately raised his voice and said, Xianyuan Mo's has an ancient azure dragon as his spiritual beast. In addition, he is extremely powerful. If you want revenge, lend me all your spiritual energy and battle chi. Let me avenge your Sovereign Tongtian. Kill Xianyuan Mo's and offer it to Sovereign Tongtian's spirit. Black Lotus Lord's voice, which contained a powerful aura, sounded like a demon's bewitching voice. The cultivators were filled with anger and murderous intent. At that moment, they lost their rationality and were led by his words. They agreed without thinking carefully. Please tell us what we should do. How can we lend you our spiritual energy and battle chi? What will happen to us after we lend it to you? Will we lose our spiritual energy? Some people were worried and asked. Black Lotus Lord raised his head and laughed. Don't worry, I have a cultivation technique that can make use of your strength. To fight, I will return your power. After this is done, I will return the borrowed energy spirit. All your power will be returned to return. Hearing this, the people below no longer had any doubts. Voices of different pitches were filled with excitement as they agreed. Black Lotus Master, please avenge our monarch. Avenge us. Sovereign Tongtian's subordinates numbered in the thousands. Now that they had gathered together, their shouts became louder and louder. After witnessing the tragic death of their Sovereign Tongtian and the destruction of their homes, everyone's emotions were stirred. Their killing intent and fighting intent soared into the sky, forming a powerful airflow that soared into the night sky. Chapter 3595. The area where Sovereign Tongtian's spiritual energy had enveloped was the clearest. When Sovereign Tongtian died, the experts in that area could feel the change in the aura in the air. They could even feel that the entire world was trembling. In the middle of the night, those who were sleeping soundly in their rooms felt the world spinning as if the entire sky had collapsed. The items on the cabinets and tables all fell to the ground due to the tremors. Screams and the sound of things falling to the ground broke the silence of the night. Cultivators from all over the place sensed the commotion and leaped to the rooftops to look up at the sky, trying to find the cause of the commotion. Compared to ordinary cultivators, the higher the cultivation level of a cultivator, the better they could sense the changes in the world. The world is about to change. On a tall building, an elder frowned as he looked up at the sky. He could feel the changes in the air, and the more he looked, the more shocked he became. This commotion, could it be that something has happened to the sovereign of this world, Sovereign Tong Tian? In another place, a few old men and a few middle-aged men were gathered together. They all looked at the shaking of the world and felt that it was inconceivable. Who could have shaken the sovereign of this world? Could it be? Experts from all over the place stood on high ground and guessed. They all had their suspicions. They knew that Sovereign Tong Tian was dealing with Xianyuan Mose and the ghost Dr. Fingzhou. However, this was Sovereign Tong Tian's world after all. Could they really have come here? Just as they were thinking, someone suddenly exclaimed in the night. Look! Something seems to be falling from the sky. Ah! What is that powerful light in the night sky? Hiss! That must be a pile of rocks. Even though they were very far away, some people could faintly see the things falling from the sky. They looked like they were not far away, but they knew that they were far away from them. The mental energy in the air seems to have suddenly disappeared. An elder widened his eyes in shock. He was so shocked that he couldn't help but pull out a few strands of his beard. The world is really about to change. At the same time, the sovereigns of the other heavens also noticed the changes in the heavens and earth. They were even more surprised when they saw the light shooting up into the sky. However, they knew that Sovereign Tong Tian was enemies with Fingzhou and Xianyuan Mose, and they had a premonition that they would fight sooner or later. Thus, they were not very shocked to see this scene. They were just surprised that Sovereign Tong Tian, who had been a sovereign for many years, had actually lost to Xianyuan Mose and Fingzhou. However, they were only surprised by this. After all, this matter did not concern them, so they did not pay too much attention to it. They only watched with the mentality of a bystander. On the other hand, Sovereign Black Tortoise was shocked when he realized that Sovereign Tong Tian had died. He had fought with Sovereign Tong Tian for so long and had not been able to defeat him. He did not expect that Xianyuan Mose and Fingzhou would be able to do it. They were not the only ones who had noticed it. Even Lang Hua and the others, as well as the masters of the sects and clans in the upper realm, had noticed the changes in the world that night. Chapter 3596. Tun Yun, who was lying on the ground, saw Mo Chen's expression change. Then it looked at the turbulence in the sky. It could not help but straighten its head and ask, "What's wrong? Did something happen to Yama Lord?" Mo Chen glanced at it, then his gaze fell on Fingzhou, who was sleeping soundly. He stood up and walked to Fingzhou's side, reaching out to unseal her sleep acupuncture point. Once the acupuncture point was unsealed, Fingzhou, who had been sleeping soundly, woke up not long after. When she opened her eyes, she saw Mo Chen, and the source of the warmth beside her was not Xianyuan Mose, but Tun Yun. She frowned and immediately woke up. Where is he? She looked around but didn't see Xianyuan Mose's figure. Instead, she sensed the tremors on the ground and the changes in the air. She raised her head to look at the sky, and when she did, her expression changed and she jumped up from the ground. He turned back. Fingzhou raised her voice slightly. Her nervousness and worry could be heard in her voice. Mo Chen looked at her and said, "Not long after you fell asleep, he sealed your sleep acupuncture point." Then he turned back and said that he could not miss this opportunity. "I tried to stop him, but I could not." He paused and sighed in his heart, he said that he would not let you worry, and that he would definitely rush back before daybreak. But I saw that the situation had changed, so I unsealed your sleep acupuncture point to wake you up and tell you the seriousness of the matter. Sovereign Tong Tian is dead? Feng Jiu asked. Her gaze fell on the sky, and she took in the strange phenomenon that soared into the sky in the night. That's right. Sovereign Tong Tian should have been killed by Mo's. This world has been changing since just now, and the aura in the air has also changed. Sovereign Tong Tian's spiritual energy has also disappeared from this world. The island he condensed has also collapsed. The falling rocks and the like are proof. As Mo Chen spoke, he looked at the dark night sky. There was a trace of seriousness in his voice, and I woke you up not because Sovereign Tong Tian is dead, but because your life and death tribulations have begun. When he sensed that their life and death tribulations had begun to move, his heart became abnormally heavy. Hearing this, Feng Jiu wasn't worried about his own life and death calamity, but about Xianyuan Mo's, who was still in battle. If their life and death calamity were to move, wouldn't that mean that he might die in this battle? When she thought of this, she panicked. I need to find him. As soon as she said this, she took a deep breath and rushed into the night, ignoring Mo Chen and Tun Yun behind her. Master! Tun Yun called out anxiously. He leapt into the air and chased after him. Mo Chen paused for a moment when he saw this. His deep gaze landed on Feng Jiu, who was drifting away in a cloud of dust. He looked at her, knowing full well that there was danger ahead and that it might even affect her and put her in danger, but she still threw herself forward without any regrets. It was all because the person she loved the most was in that dangerous place, the person she cared about, the person she was tied to, so she was not afraid of danger, and was willing to live and die with him. His white robes fluttered. In the next moment, he stepped forward and chased after Feng Jiu, stepping on a gentle breeze. Chapter 3597. In the night sky, as the island disappeared, the clouds dispersed, and Xianyuan Mo's, the Black Lotus Master, and the others appeared in the night sky. Although it was night time, the aura that soared into the sky was extremely dazzling. Especially at this moment, the Black Lotus Master was in the air and was frantically absorbing the spiritual energy and fighting spirit from those people. The aura surged into his body, and those people who were initially angry and excited were now screaming in pain. This was because their spiritual energy and fighting spirit were being sucked dry along with their fighting spirit. The cultivators were like flowers that had been doused with hot water. They withered rapidly, grew old, and died. Ha 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 ha. Wild laughter came from the Black Lotus Lord's mouth. It contained a powerful aura and caused the entire sky to tremble. His laughter spread out like ripples in the water and spread throughout the land. Xianyuan Mo suppressed the surging blood in his heart. His deep black eyes stared at the Black Lotus Master, who he could not get close to. Even in the dark of the night, he could see the black aura gushing out of the Black Lotus Master's body. In order to kill Sovereign Tong Tian, he had used the doppelganger technique to divert his attention. However, the saber had indeed landed on him. Even though it was his doppelganger, it had still caused him to suffer serious injuries. However, he did not expect the Black Lotus Master to cultivate an evil technique. He had absorbed the spiritual energy and fighting spirit from those cultivators into his body to strengthen his strength. Seeing the Black Lotus Master's strength increase, he knew that he could not continue fighting. Otherwise, he would most likely be defeated by the Black Lotus Master. Then, while the Black Lotus Master was still absorbing those people's energy, he turned around and wanted to leave. However, at this moment, the Black Lotus Master's sinister and murderous voice was heard. You want to leave? Ha! Do you think you can still leave? A sinister voice rang out. In the next moment, he raised his hand and a black stream of air shot out like a venomous snake towards Xianyuan Mo's. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mo's, who had turned around, moved his hand that was holding the Xianyuan sword. A sharp sword chi shot out and dispersed the black aura. However, the aura was like fog. It dispersed and condensed again, coming towards him from all directions. His brows furrowed as he looked at the black aura. He quickly retreated while thinking of a way to deal with it. When his gaze landed on the Black Lotus Lord, his heart skipped a beat. The spiritual energy in his body surged, and he swung the Xianyuan sword. Swish! The sharp chi sword contained a powerful airflow and whizzed out. The sword chi that was visible to the naked eye emitted a cold killing intent and chopped down with the force of a thunderbolt. Hoo! When the sword chi reached the Black Lotus Lord's side, it was blocked by the black aura and could not advance any further. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose narrowed his eyes and slapped the hilt of the Xianyuan sword with his other hand. A hidden force struck out, and the Xianyuan sword in his hand also attacked with that slap. Swish! The tip of the ancient sword emitted a sharp light. The sword struck out with a force that was too fast for one to cover one's ears. In an instant, it broke through the black aura and headed straight for the Black Lotus Lord. Caught off guard, the Black Lotus Lord abruptly withdrew his cultivation technique and quickly dodged. Chapter 3598. Looking at the falling cultivators, the Black Lotus Lord's face turned gloomy. The black aura around his body also became thicker because of his gloomy aura. You've ruined my plans. I'll take you as compensation. A sinister voice sounded. His hands surged, and two black auras suddenly attacked. The rolling black auras quickly attacked Xianyuan Mose. The Xianyuan sword flew back to Xianyuan Mose's hand after circling once. Looking at the black aura attacking him, he immediately released a powerful aura. This aura blocked the black aura. However, the black aura became thicker and thicker until it completely blocked his line of sight. The Black Lotus Lord revealed a sinister smile. His voice was filled with ruthlessness. Die! Watch out for your left side. When the Azure Dragon saw this scene in midair, it was so shocked that it hurriedly reminded him. Just as it was about to go forward to help, it saw a red figure sweep over like a ghost. Before the figure came close, a red ribbon had already attacked and wrapped around its master's waist, pulling him back. Ghost Doctor. The Azure Dragon saw the person and could not help but call out in surprise. The familiar aura made Xianyuan Mose unable to dodge or break free from the red ribbon around his waist. He retreated and was pulled back by the red ribbon, crashing into Fengzhou's arms. Are you all right? Are you hurt? Fengzhou asked nervously, worried that he was injured. Hearing the nervousness and worry in her familiar voice, Xianyuan Mose smiled slightly. His deep eyes were filled with tenderness as he looked at the woman in front of him. I'm fine. Don't worry. It's good that you're fine. You're too reckless. How could you come here alone? What would I do if something happened to you? Her worried heart was relieved when she saw that he was fine. However, she was worried again when she smelled the blood on his body. You're injured. Where are you hurt? Is it serious? She was so nervous that she did not realize that he was injured. His black robe covered the wounds and bloodstains on his body. She could not tell where he was injured. Was his injury serious? It's just a small injury. Don't worry. Xianyuan Mose comforted her and protected her behind him. He looked at the Black Lotus Lord in front of him and said to Fengzhou, he has absorbed the spiritual energy, battle intent, and hatred of thousands of cultivators. Now that his strength has increased greatly, he's not easy to deal with. Fengzhou looked at the Black Lotus Lord, who was surrounded by black aura. She walked out from behind Xianyuan Mose and said, he can only be dealt with by me. My heavenly fire and the green lotus in my body can restrain his black aura. You, go to the side. And don't let. You. The side. Xianyuan Mose frowned, but he didn't leave. Instead, he held Fengzhou's hand and said, you're no match for him alone. Let's work together. After exchanging blows with the Master of the Black Lotus, he knew that the Master of the Black Lotus was far more powerful than the Sovereign of Skirich. That strange Black Lotus aura was especially difficult to deal with. If she were to face it alone, who knew what would happen? The three of us will work together to deal with him. Mo Chen, who was dressed in white, walked over slowly. His white robe and his body emitted the light of the Son of God. He was as dazzling as the moon in the night. Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou glanced at him. Then, they looked away and looked at the Black Lotus Lord in front of them. They seemed to be thinking about something. Chapter 3599. The Black Lotus Lord's voice was sinister and filled with viciousness. He stared viciously at Fengzhou, who was dressed in red. His gaze was like that of a venomous snake staring at its prey. He looked at the three of them and revealed a sinister smile. You want to deal with me? Have you all forgotten whose territory this is? As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly waved his hand, and a black vortex appeared. His voice, which contained a powerful aura, was heard. Come out, all of you. The vortex that appeared in mid-air surged, and in the next moment, cultivators rushed out from it. These cultivators were not the subordinates of the Sovereign of Skirich, but the subordinates of the Black Lotus Lord. The black mass surrounded the area. There were 3 layers of people, both inside and outside. It could be said that there were close to 10,000 people. However, the people who rushed out from the vortex did not stop. They continued to jump out from the vortex. There were so many of them that it was unbelievable. The Sovereign of Black Lotus is invincible. Destroy Xianyuan Fengzhou and become the supreme ruler of the world. The Sovereign of Black Lotus is invincible. Destroy Xianyuan Fengzhou and become the supreme ruler of the world. Shouts came from the mouths of the cultivators, which contained the aura of everyone's spirit energy. Their voices pierced through the clouds and echoed in the sky. They raised their swords high and pointed them at the sky. Their shouts were filled with excitement and agitation. It was as if they had already seen their sovereign annihilating Xianyuan Mose, Fengzhou, and the others. His voice, which was as imposing as mountains and rivers, also entered the ears of all the cultivators in the sky. Hearing the shouts that reverberated in the sky, the Black Lotus Lord narrowed his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. He was very satisfied with this situation. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Moreover, he did not need to make a move. Just the people under him alone were enough to exhaust the cultivator's strength. With a wave of his hand, the deafening shouts immediately quieted down. The black mass of cultivators all quietly looked at their monarch, waiting for his command. They knew that as long as they destroyed Xianyuan Mose, Fengzhou, and the others today, their sovereign would become the new sovereign of several realms. Their status would be extraordinary, and their status would rise as well. Xianyuan Mose, Fengzhou, even if you have great abilities and powerful strength, do you think my subordinates can't exhaust you to death? The Black Lotus Lord said sinisterly. He looked as if he was watching a good show. He stared at them as if he was looking at dead people. In the next moment, he raised his hand and spoke in a voice filled with hostility, "Let's go. Kill them for Benjun. The one who takes their heads, I will make him the sovereign of the lower realms. The one who slashes them and makes them bleed, I will make him a respected sovereign." Hearing this, the tens of thousands of cultivators were in an uproar. Thinking of their sovereign's words, no one thought about whether they were strong enough to fight against him. Instead, they thought that since they had so many people, they could exhaust them to death. Thus, as soon as their monarch finished speaking, the tens of thousands of cultivators roared and charged towards them with swords in hand. Kill them. Take their heads. Kill. Kill. Chapter 3600. Xianyuan Mo's, Fengzhou, and Mo Chen's expressions were as calm as water as they watched the dense mass of cultivators pouncing towards them. Mo Chen stood behind Xianyuanmo's and Fingzhou as he watched quietly. The saint light on his body gradually grew stronger. Xianyuanmo's glanced at the cultivators. His thin lips moved slightly as he spoke in a low voice filled with pressure. Azure Dragon. Wipe them out. Roar. The azure dragon that was hovering in the air raised its head and let out a dragon roar. With a swing of its tail, it swung towards those cultivators. The pressure of an ancient divine beast was also released at this moment, attacking those cultivators. Fengzhou glanced indifferently at the cultivators. Her red lips moved slightly as she spoke in a cold voice, Fire Phoenix. As soon as she spoke, a ray of fire shot out from her body. An extremely beautiful fire phoenix that was covered in raging flames flew into the sky. In an instant, it lit up the entire night sky. The cry of a phoenix rang out as the pressure of an ancient divine beast transformed into waves of attacks towards the cultivators. Tun Yun, who was following behind, had already charged forward to join the chaotic battle as soon as Fingzhou summoned the fire phoenix. Even with the azure dragon, fire phoenix, and Tun Yun taking care of the cultivators, it was difficult to clear them out in a short period of time due to the sheer number of cultivators. In addition, the cultivators under the Black Lotus Master were all covered in a black destructive aura. The aura was so strong that it formed a protective barrier around them. It allowed them to fight with all their might without fearing the pressure of an ancient divine beast. Seeing this, she frowned and said, "There's something strange about the aura of those people." Under normal circumstances, even if the opponent's cultivation was very strong, it would be very difficult for them to withstand the pressure of an ancient divine beast. Moreover, two ancient divine beasts had appeared at the same time. However, these people were actually able to stand under such pressure and use the aura in their bodies to fight. Needless to say, she was very shocked. Xianyuanmo's also frowned as if he could not understand how they could withstand the pressure of an ancient divine beast. Mo Chen stared at those people for a while and said, "These people all have the aura of the Black Lotus of Destruction on their bodies. Moreover, the Black Lotus Master left a strand of divine consciousness on them. It is the aura of the Black Lotus of Destruction and that strand of divine consciousness that allows them to withstand the pressure of the ancient divine beast." He paused and said, "He must have been prepared to use these people to exhaust your physical strength and spiritual aura so that he can kill you in one move." Hearing this, Fingzhou narrowed her eyes and said, "If that's the case, then it seems that we have to find help." After a long battle, they were not sure if they could still fight against the Black Lotus Master. However, since that was the case, she could call for help. Hearing this, Xianyuanmo's glanced at her. Mo Chen looked at her and asked in surprise, "Who else can you call for help here?" Fengzhou curled the corners of her lips, and her brows were filled with confidence. "Mo Chen, don't forget that Mo Zhe and I are both sovereigns. Our mental strength covers both territories. How difficult would it be for us to call for help?" Chapter 3601. In the name of Fingzhou, I request the assistance of all the experts. A cold voice that contained the pressure of a divine king spread out at that moment. Every word that came out of her mouth was condensed from the aura of spiritual energy. Every word grew larger and larger, and along with the powerful aura, they pierced through the sky one by one and spread out into the world. This scene shocked Xianyuanmo's and Mo Chen. This secret reading technique could pierce through the heavens and earth, spreading to every corner of the heavens and earth. It was said that it had been lost for many years. They never thought that they would see it in Fingzhou's hands today. A white light gradually appeared in the east. The first rays of dawn dispelled the darkness of the night and brought light. At the same time, in various places in the upper realm, a black vortex transmission formation appeared in the sky. Fengzhou's words were also transmitted from one of the vortexes. In the name of Fingzhou, I request the assistance of all the experts. This sentence contained the spirit and might of a ruler of the heavens and earth. The clear and cold voice clearly reached the ears of all the experts. The moment they heard Fingzhou's voice, all the experts who had received Fengzhou's help were shocked and stood up abruptly. It's the ghost Dr. Fengzhou. It's Fengzhou. It's Fengzhou's voice. The ghost doctor is requesting our help. All the experts stared at the vortex transmission formation in the sky with shining eyes. After handing over the matters of their clans, sects, and schools, they all rose into the sky and flew towards the vortex transmission formation in the sky. Voices that contained powerful spiritual energy were also transmitted from the experts' mouths. The ghost doctor is in trouble, we will not shirk our duty. Fengzhou has called, we will do our best to help. We will not shirk our duty. We will not shirk our duty. We will not shirk our duty. A sonorous and powerful voice resounded through the sky. Whether it was those who had received Fengzhou's help, those who were acquainted with her, or those who had only heard of her name but had never seen her before, all of them soared into the sky at this moment and flew towards the teleportation vortex. Everyone heard Fengzhou's voice. Ling Hua, Ling Shuwei, and the others naturally heard their master's voice as well. They looked at the whirlpool in the sky and saw the cultivators rushing towards the whirlpool one by one without hesitation, disappearing into the whirlpool in an instant. With a single order, all the heroes of the world surged forth. Master is truly worthy of being the Phoenix Master of the world. Du Fan walked forward with a fan in his hand and looked at the scene in the sky excitedly. Lang Hua looked at the scene in the sky. His gentle voice was firm as he said to everyone, Master is in trouble. What are we waiting for? Let's go. As soon as his voice fell, he rose into the air and took the lead to head toward the vortex. Let's go. Everyone looked at each other and shouted. In the next moment, they all followed Lang Hua towards the vortex in the sky and quickly jumped into the teleportation vortex. At the same time, when Luo Fei and the other three heard Fengzhou's voice, their hearts shook. Without another word, they also headed towards the vortex in the sky. Even if their strength was not considered top-notch, they would naturally protect Fengzhou with their lives if she was in trouble. Chapter 3602. He tossed the wine cup behind him, flicked his robes, and stood up. His deep voice was full of vigor as he said, It's rare for her to ask for help. How can I not go? Shui Junyue put down the wine cup and stood up. His stoic face was expressionless as he glanced at Hun Yuanzi indifferently. If you want to go, then go. Don't dawdle. As soon as he finished speaking, his gaze fell on the vortex that had appeared in the sky. He gathered his chi and soared into the air, heading towards the vortex. Stinking brat, wait for me. Hun Yuanzi shouted and hurriedly followed him. Mu Xian and CK, who were guarding the Immortal Road, had been ordered to guard the Immortal Road. When they heard their master's voice calling for experts from all directions, although they wanted to go and help, they didn't dare to leave without permission. Therefore, after a discussion, the two of them summoned their disciples and asked them to go and help. The disciples under the two had all interacted with Feng 9 before. Even if their master hadn't spoken, they would have reported to their master and gone to help after seeing so many experts heading towards the teleportation portal. Now that their master had spoken, they immediately agreed and quickly followed the sect master and the elders to the teleportation portal. After hearing Fengzhou's words, the people on the floating ground all rushed towards the vortex under Zhang Qing's lead. The floating area was originally a place of exile, but it was also a place of death. The people living there were all extremely vicious and evil people, and they had all restrained themselves after submitting to Fengzhou. Now that the Phoenix Master had issued an order, they immediately rushed toward the vortex without any hesitation. In the sky, the experts who had passed through the vortex all reported their names when they came out of the teleportation vortex and then quickly joined the battle. Xianyuan Mo's and Nemo Chen's eyes flashed as they looked at the experts who had appeared from the teleportation vortex. Although they were shocked, they also felt that it was normal for the experts from all directions to rush over once Fengzhou gave the order. This was because she wasn't just anyone. She was the ghost Dr. Fengzhou, the Phoenix Master of the world. Seeing the thousands of practitioners coming out of the teleportation vortex because of Fengzhou's words, the smile on the Black Lotus Master's face gradually disappeared and became extremely gloomy. This scene allowed him to see how Fengzhou had won the hearts of all the heroes in the world. This scene allowed him to see how all the heroes respected Fengzhou. These experts from all directions rushed over to help just because of her one word and command. It was all because of the ghost Dr. Fengzhou. At this moment, he finally understood why she dared to be so arrogant and confident. She was able to summon so many heroes just by using the name of Fengzhou. Since Fengzhou has summoned me, I have come to help as well. A deep voice came from the sky. The Black Tortoise Sovereign led his elite guards over from the vortex. With a wave of his hand, they quickly joined the battle. Seeing this, the Black Lotus Master could no longer remain calm. Seeing that the situation was gradually leaning towards Fengzhou, he no longer waited. Instead, the aura of the Black Lotus of Destruction surged from his body. Fengzhou. So what if you have the help of all the heroes? Today, the ancient green lotus in your body, as well as the lives of all of you, are mine. Chapter 3603. The black airflow rolled forward like thick smoke and quickly swept towards Fengzhou, Xianyuan, and Mo Qin. The three of them did not dare to be careless when facing Lord Black Lotus. They quickly gathered their qi and flew in another direction. They were all experts who had reached the level of supreme gods. Moreover, they possessed an ancient aura. If they were to fight with Master Black Lotus, the airflow would be able to injure the people who had come to help. Therefore, they all pulled away from Master Black Lotus and lured him to a place further away from Master Black Lotus. Xianyuan Mose held the Xianyuan sword in his hand, Fengzhou held the Qingfeng sword in his hand, and Mo Qin held a long sword that shone with a cold light. The three of them surrounded Lord Black Lotus from 3 different directions and attacked him from 3 different directions. Every attack carried fatal killing intent as they attacked Lord Black Lotus from 3 different directions. Saber light and sword shadows flashed and the sharp sword qi whizzed through the air. The sword qi was so sharp that it seemed as though it could split the entire world apart. Fengzhou's flames and Xianyuan Mose's wind blades complemented each other and formed a destructive flaming airflow that whizzed towards Lord Black Lotus. Seeing the destructive flaming airflow whizzing towards him, Lord Black Lotus immediately threw out the long sword in his hand. The black long sword instantly transformed into countless identical black swords and formed a sword formation that rotated in front of him. As the countless black long swords rotated, the airflow in the air was sucked into a ball and violently attacked the flaming airflow in front of him. Boom! The 2 powerful airflows collided with a loud bang, accompanied by countless sparks and black smoke in the sky. Raging flames burned and soared into the sky. The black smoke was like a mushroom cloud, surging layer by layer. It was also very terrifying. The powerful airflow also surged with the collision of the 2 airflows. Even the cultivators who were fighting in the sky hundreds of miles away were affected by the powerful airflow because they couldn't retreat in time and were sent flying. Ah! Puff! Blood-curdling screams could be heard in the sky along with the sound of blood spurting out. However, Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou didn't have the time to care about those people at all. The 2 of them rushed forward fiercely, and their 2 swords were filled with murderous intent as they charged towards the Black Lotus Lord. The Black Lotus Lord had absorbed the spiritual energy, battle aura, and hatred of the people under the sovereign of Tongtian's command. His dark and destructive aura was already very strong. Now that he saw the 2 ancient swords coming towards him, he squinted his eyes and sneered. The black fog in his hand attacked. When the black fog attacked, wisps of evil spirit aura suddenly rushed out and attacked Fengzhou and Xianyuan Mose. Xianyuan Mose and Fengzhou could feel the strong resentment of the cold evil spirit qi. Coupled with the destructive aura of the Black Lotus of Destruction, their swords were blocked. It was as if there was a powerful force at the tip of the swords that was fighting against them. Seeing this, Emo-chan put away the long sword in his hand and formed a complicated seal with his hands. Following the formation of the seal, a sacred light fiercely shot out from his hand and enveloped the sinister black baleful aura. Chapter 3604. What a good son of Saint. I have underestimated you. The Black Lotus Lord stared at Emo-chan with a sinister gaze. He was surprised that Emo-chan was able to cleanse his chi of darkness. Initially, he did not take Emo-chan seriously. However, at this moment, he finally took this son of Saint seriously. With a wave of his hand, a black fog formed into a wall and attacked Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou. However, his figure flashed and his black robe flapped. He stared at Emo-chan with a murderous gaze and reached out to grab Emo-chan's throat at lightning speed. When Emo-chan saw his attack coming towards him, he immediately retreated. Due to his opponent's speed being extremely fast, he was already right in front of Emo-chan's eyes. When Emo-chan's hand moved towards Emo-chan's throat, killing intent gushed forth. Emo-chan immediately extended his hand, and a long sword appeared in his hand. He gripped it tightly and switched from defense to offense. He had cultivated in the Saint Temple for a few years and his strength had increased greatly. Although he was now at the level of a divine king, he was still capable of fighting against the Black Lotus Lord. In particular, the Saint technique that he cultivated could restrain the source of darkness. Naturally, he was not afraid of the Black Lotus Lord's attack. Moreover, Xianyuanmos and Fingzhou were here. He was not fighting alone. After exchanging a few blows with Emo-chan, the Black Lotus Lord was shocked. He did not expect that the Son of Saint technique would not be affected by his chi of Black Lotus. He wanted to get rid of Emo-chan first before dealing with Fingzhou and Xianyuanmos. However, he did not expect Emo-chan to be more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Thinking of this, he was moved. Since that was the case, he could only choose another person to deal with. Xianyuanmos was injured earlier, and had fought with him for so long. Even if Fengzhou and the others were here, Fengzhou's mind would definitely be in chaos if Xianyuanmos attacked him first and got rid of him. At that time, he would take the opportunity to kill Emo-chan and take the green lotus in her body with half the effort. After making up his mind, he pretended to attack Emo-chan, but at the same time, he diverted some of his attention to Xianyuanmos and Fengzhou. When he saw that they were blocked by the black air, he immediately flipped his palm, and a gust of wind suddenly struck towards Emo-chan. The attack was fast and powerful. Although he did not use the chi of Black Lotus, Emo-chan, who could not dodge in time, was sent flying. Pooh! The moment Emo-chan was sent flying, the blood in his body surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was unsteady as he retreated. When he saw the Black Lotus Lord circling around the black fog and attacking Fengzhou, he could not help but be shocked. He hurriedly shouted a warning. Fengzhou, be careful. However, at that moment, after Fingzhou dispersed the black fog around him, he saw the Black Lotus Lord's attack coming towards him. Just as he was about to meet the attack, a strange smile appeared on his face. He dodged to the side, flipped his palm, and condensed a long sword. He attacked Xianyuanmos at a speed that was too fast to be heard. Mos! Fingzhou was shocked. He gathered all his spiritual power and rushed towards Xianyuanmos. He wanted to protect Xianyuanmos before the Black Lotus Lord's sword could reach him. Ah, Jiao! Xianyuanmos shouted. He saw the black fog gradually condensing behind Fingzhou. The Black Lotus Lord, who was holding a long sword, stared at Fingzhou with a sinister smile. He raised the long sword in his hand and attacked Fingzhou. Chapter 3605. Swoosh! Swoosh! The two sword chis that carried the aura of death slashed towards them. However, at that moment, Emo-chan was so shocked that his heart sank as though it had fallen into an ice cellar. He stared blankly at the two sword chis that carried the aura of death as they slashed towards the flames and split them apart. However, Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo's were nowhere to be seen. At that moment, his heart seemed to have stopped beating. It was only when he saw a flash of light and saw Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo's appear on the other side of the flames that his heart started beating faster and he heaved a sigh of relief. It was good that they were fine. He thought. Fengjiu pulled Xianyuanmo's a few meters back and steadied himself. Just now, when she used the flames to protect him, she pulled him into the space to avoid the two fatal attacks. She really didn't dare to imagine what would happen if there was no space for them to dodge at that moment. What would happen if the two deadly sword chi landed on their bodies? She took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. She glanced at the gloomy Black Lotus Master, then looked at Xianyuanmo's and asked, "How are you?" "I'm fine." Xianyuanmo shook his head and said solemnly, "His strength has increased a lot. We can't let our guard down." "I know," she replied. She held the Qingfeng sword tightly in her hand and stared at the Black Lotus Lord. In the next moment, she and Xianyuanmo's charged towards the Black Lotus Lord. "Looks like you still have some secret treasures on you." The Black Lotus Lord stared eerily at Fengjiu and his eyes were filled with excitement. Now, he knew that all the treasures on Fengjiu would be his. Not only the ancient green lotus, but the moment when the two of them disappeared was enough to let him know that Fengjiu still had a portable space on him. He raised his hand and the black longsword flew towards Xianyuanmo's as though it had a life of its own. At the same time, he gathered the power of the Black Lotus in his palm and attacked Fengjiu. The black figure faced Fengjiu's Qingfeng sword without dodging. The wind from his palm was extremely ruthless and every move was fatal. He aimed at Fengjiu's vital point. On the other side, Xianyuanmo's was entangled by the black aura formed by the longsword. The aura of the Black Lotus, which exuded an aura of death, shot out a sharp aura that was as sharp as a blade and slashed across Xianyuanmo's body. It broke the aura around him and tore his robes. The black aura entered his body. It was only a wisp, but it was already bone-chilling and hair-raising. Countless wisps of black smoke enveloped him as though they were going to enter his body. When Imo-chan saw this, he couldn't care less about his heavy injuries. He immediately gathered his chi and rushed towards Xianyuanmo's. The chi in his body surged, and he struck out with his palm. A dazzling holy light flew out from his hand and shot towards the black smoke, dispersing it completely. "How are you? Can you still hold on?" In a flash, Imo-chan went forward and supported Xianyuanmo's, whose footsteps were a little messy. The moment he held his hand, he felt a gust of eerie aura enter his palm. He was shocked and immediately looked at him. "I'm fine." Xianyuanmo's pursed his lips, but his lips were slightly discolored. His face was also a little pale, but he was still holding on.